plus GST tribunal is also started. So because of that, GST tribunal के भी judgments आएंगे. Plus apart from judgments, lot many other updates also come on GST on a regular basis. So we thought of starting this weekly knowledge session series, wherein we will basically have two different parts. So in one part we will discuss the weekly updates कि जो भी पिछले एक हफ्ते में 10 दिन में significant updates आए हैं, those updates, and then we will have an open query session. किसी का भी कोई भी doubt है related to GST or customs or any other within indirect tax. So any other law, if you have any doubt, so that we can take up in the open query session. So this is the basic idea behind this series. So we will have this session on every Saturday at 12 p.m. And I think that is it. Anything you want to add, Gopal?
No, so Mohit, as you have mentioned, there are so many updates and the law being very dynamic, especially after this GST tribunal is being set up and the appeals are now being filed and heard. So there will be more cases compared to what we have seen now. So far, we have seen only the matters from the writ courts, so where the cases were morely related to natural justice and all. But now the tribunal will discuss a lot more cases on the specific aspects of the reconciliation, tax liability, etc. So yes, this session on every Saturday will be very helpful. We will try to decode and discuss as many cases and the queries as possible given the paucity of time. So that's something I would add to what Mohit have already said, and I hope everybody will have a great learning from this session. If anybody has any question, we have already given a time slot for that, so we'll discuss the queries also.
So I think we can start the session. First we'll start with judgments, and then we have GST advisory, GST portal advisory issued in regarding returns, GST return filing. So we can start with the advisory first because I think some people are still joining, and or maybe we can start with judgment.
We can start with judgments, Mohit, first. We can start with judgment, and I will discuss as many judgments as possible given the paucity of time. So Mohit, you would start with the judgments first, or should I take up the judgments?
You can start. Maybe we can start with that tribunal judgment first, and then we can
Okay, okay,
go to
okay.
Bambino and that other one.
Okay, Mohit, just a second. Huh? So the first judgment that we have seen, the GST 80 GST Appellate Tribunal has given its first other than anti-profiteering related judgment. That is the first judgment of the normal assessment cases. So the principal bench of GSTAT Delhi single judge bench in the case of Sterling and Wilson's Private Limited has given its judgment dated 11th February 2026. While the conclusion of the judgment is that in this case, the assessee, there was a mismatch in the tax liability in GSTR 1 and 3B. The case was opened in Section 74, alleging fraud and willful misstatements, etc. And the department finalized the demand, passing the order under 74. The assessee went into the appeal. The appellate authority accepted the plea that this case doesn't fall under Section 74 and this should be determined in terms of Section 73. However, the appellate authority upheld the demand considering the same under Section 73. So the appellant being the taxpayer being the appellant, aggrieved by the order of the appellate authority, went to the tribunal with the plea that as per Section 75(2), where the appellate authority holds that the order is not sustainable under 74, it should be redetermined in terms of section as if it was the case under 73, and that can be decided only by the original authority or the adjudicating authority. However, the appellate authority did not remand back the matter to the original authority but decided the case itself. So tribunal did not go into the merits of the reconciliation. Tribunal considering that during the initial period it might not be possible that the assessee could have reconciled or this purely a case of reconciliation. The tribunal remanded the matter back to the lower authority for reconsideration in terms of Section 75(2). The tribunal has not given any verdict on the reconciliation aspect. The appellant is required to disclose all the facts and reconciliation before the adjudicating authority, and basis that the tax liability will be finalized. However, the important principle that comes from this this judgment is that in case of Section 75(2), which says that when the case is not sustainable in terms of Section 74, it should be the tax liability should be redetermined in terms of Section 73, but that can be done only by the original authority which has passed the order in original under Section 74. That authority only can redetermine. So this is the principle from this judgment. So if now moving on to the next judgment, this was the judgment from the tribunal. The next judgment is from the high.
So,
The next judgment will
uh,
be taking up. Yes, Mohit.
1 million goal. So just one thing which I would like to highlight here is, so no, this has been a pattern in CSTAT as well. So we as practitioners, most of the CAs, most of the advocates, we as practitioners, we tend to focus more on technical aspects, merit aspects. कि कभी भी कोई केस आता है तो first one of the first things we see कि actual what is the matter, whether if it is a 2A 3B reconciliation for example. So we'll see whether there is actual mismatch or not, whether that CA certificate as per circular 183, 193, whether those certificates have been filed or not, whether the ITC is actually coming in 2A or not. But if you see the pattern in CSTAT, as well as hopefully what is going to be the pattern in GSTAT, as well as High Court and Supreme Court is the technical grounds. So for example, invocation of Section 74 requires elements of fraud, suppression, willful misstatement. So in a lot of cases, even this elements are absent. Default logic which is given by department in their orders and show cause notice is that this is a self-assessment regime. So if you have not done any kind of payment of, or you have done any kind of wrong availment of ITC, that is for reason of fraud, because this was a self-assessment, you were supposed to do self-assessment only. But that is not the law. So as per law, there has to be a willful misstatement at the end of assessee. So as GST practitioners, what we should keep in mind is there are lot many technical grounds also. So invocation of Section 74 is one ground, that whether there is an element of fraud or not. Then whether there is jurisdiction of the officer, whether it has been issued by officer in wrong jurisdiction, or whether that has been issued by officer with appropriate power. So let's say for a particular case, assistant commissioner was authorized to issue a show cause notice or adjudicate the show cause notice, but that was done by superintendent. So that is also a jurisdictional issue. The centralized jurisdiction. So in a lot of cases, centralized show cause notice has been are being issued by a single authority for the pan India notice, pan India assessees. So whether that is within the jurisdiction of that officer. So these are just some of the examples. There are when you whether the order is properly signed, whether that was properly communicated to the assessee. So there are so many different kind of technical grounds which we can see. So in CSTAT, believe me, friends, at least 30% of the orders get thrown out only on the basis of technical grounds without even going into merits. We have gotten so many orders where there was no case on merits. On merit, the tax was payable. But on technical ground, the case of department was weak. So tribunal did not even go into the merits. They dismissed the case. They accepted our appeal only on the basis of technical grounds. So just that is one thing which I wanted to throw some light on. That this is one area where you should focus on if you are going to file an appeal before tribunal or high court, because merit we are very strong. That is where by default our mind goes. But in technical grounds, sometimes we miss to give important enough importance to those technical grounds.
Mohit, just to add one more point, two more points actually. In case of the returns mismatch, they will find there are judgments also, and the previous law also. I think there was some Supreme Court judgment in Reliance Industry also. In case of self-assessment, when the assessee has disclosed to its best, and in case of the returns related mismatches, when the GS tax liability in GSTR1 is already higher, and department is already aware of that, so there it cannot be said that I have suppressed anything. I have already disclosed it to the department. So there are other judgments also where it is held that the case of 74 or the extended period is not invocable. So yes, we should take care of those things also. And on the limitation aspects, although this tribunal judgment is not clear, but if the original notice was issued beyond the time limit of 73, but in terms of 74, so there is a circular also which says that such case cannot fall under 75 too. Otherwise, the purpose of the limitation would completely fail. So we have to take care of those grounds, as Mohit has rightly said, uh, while we are filing the appeals, at least before the tribunal, so that we can take all the legal grounds. The tribunal has a tribunal can consider the legal grounds basis the jurisprudence and the interpretation of the law. Yes.
Yes, I think we can move to the next judgment.
So moving on to the next case is the judgment of the Allahabad High Court. This was in the case of Bambino Agro Industries Limited versus State of Uttar Pradesh. Now, this case holds relevance in case of the appeals that have been filed belatedly. So, as per Section 1071, read with 1074, the time limit for the condonable time period. The time limit is the 3 months plus 1 month from the date of communication of the order. So, when we file the appeal before the first appellate authority, or even before the tribunal, there is a time limit under Section 107 and 112 respectively. Now, in many cases, what happens, the department uploads the order in original or the order against which we are filing the appeal online on the GST common portal. But there is no communication received on email, or there is no communication received physically. But the department contends that as per Section 169, there are 5 clauses A to E. In any of the clause, if the service is done, then it is properly in terms of the GST law, and it is considered as served on the assessee. But the assessee, being unaware of what is there on the portal, assessee could not file the appeal within the time limit. Now, there are many cases, multiple assessees have been impacted because of this, that they could not file the appeal before the appellate authority. There have been some contrary judgments on this aspects, but this judgment of the Allahabad High Court, this judgment talks about two, three important aspects. I'll go to the specific aspects that has been discussed, or that the principles that emerge. While the High Court has specifically upheld that if any of the modes are adopted in from clause A to clause A, which is like uploading on the common portal, mailing, or sending through registered posts, etc. These are sufficient. There is no requirement that one should be followed. There is no priority order. So any of the modes can be adopted by the department. However, regarding the actual service of the or the effective communication of the order or the notice, the High Court has noted that the when the department uploads the order or the show cause notice online, there is no acknowledgement generated. There is no evidence that the assessee has actually opened that document or downloaded that. The High Court also referred to the this information technology law, and say referring to those laws, the it has been held that when there is no acknowledgement generated, or the GSTN or the revenue department is unaware that the assessee has actually opened those communication or actually opened those orders, the it cannot be said that this has been effectively communicated to the assessee. And in such case, the time limit for filing appeal should be considered from the effective communication of the show cause notice, and it may be actual or constructive communication in terms of Section 169, but basically the effective communication should be the communication in terms of Section 169, especially for the purpose of filing appeal. So that so in crux, it has been held that when the assessee is not aware, the day when he becomes aware, especially in light of the fact that the assessee did not there was no evidence of downloading by the assessee and all, so the so the High Court gave this judgment in favor of the assessee, and accordingly, on payment of certain deposit and all, they could file the appeal within the specified time that the High Court has given. So, crux of the judgment, this will be helpful for all those cases where the appeal has been time barred because the assessee did not notice the same on the portal. Especially now, to GST portal has been revamped, and not revamped, but this notice and order section has been changed, where they have merged both the additional notices and order and notice and order in a single tab. But before this change was made, there was confusion because some authorities used to upload the notices under the notice and order tab, whereas some authorities used to upload under the additional notice and order tab. So there was no clarity, and even on that aspect, there are a few judgments from the Calcutta High Court and other high courts, Madras High Courts, etc. So this judgment will be helpful for the assessees where the appeal has been time barred, and especially the assessee never received the order in any manner other than it uploaded on the portal. If it has been received on mail and the assessee has received it where the notification goes to the revenue authorities that the so and so taxpayer has read the email. In that case, this may not be helpful, but in cases where it is not where it is not where the department is not aware that assessee has read the order or the communication, this judgment should be helpful in those cases in filing the appeal. This should be applicable in the case of GST also, although this was with respect to the first appeal under 107. But if the first appellate authority has uploaded the order online and there is no clarity whether although as of now the time limit is still 30th June, but subsequently if there is some situation which comes, then this can be helpful in those cases also. Any comment on this, Mohit?
No, I think so. Pretty much it has been covered by you, but the problem is because we have different contradicting judgments of various different high courts. So I think by far this is I would say most favorable judgments in favor of assessee, wherein the court has held that merely uploading on GST portal does not tantamount to service. It will tantamount to communication as per the relevant section, but it will not tantamount to service of notice. And without service, assessee cannot be expected to file an appeal. But
Sorry to interfere, Mohit. It will not tantamount to communication. It will
sorry,
tantamount to service.
it will tantamount to service. It will not tantamount to communication. So, because as per section 107, appeal has to be filed within 3 months from the date of communication of order. So we have different judgment of various high courts. So again, for getting any kind of relief, so let's say if you have an appeal which has gotten time barred, now you want to, because the assessee did not see the GST portal. Now the assessee wants to take this ground that they did not see the GST portal. So first of all, you have to approach the jurisdictional high court, because this relief cannot be given by the departmental authorities at their level, and the GST tribunal, because it has just started functioning. So we do not know whether GST portal or GST appellate tribunal will entertain this ground and ask the department to entertain the appeal, because GST tribunal is a statutory body. It is bound by the statute, but in this case, whether giving this particular judgment that merely uploading GST orders on portal, that does not tantamount to communication, whether that is within the statute, because High Court has the power to do that. That is very clear. High Court can even as per its discretionary power, High Court can even hold any section ultra vires. But GST Appellate Tribunal, being a creature of the statute, whether at their level they will be able to give this judgment, and they will be able to relegate the matter back to the department for a fresh hearing against the appeal. That remains to be seen. So I think that we will get to see only when some matter reaches tribunal. After the tribunal starts functioning, whether when this matter reaches tribunal, then we'll get to see. Because otherwise, approaching High Court in each and every matter is going to become very difficult for all the assessees. So I think that is all. Gopal, I think we can continue.
No, Mohit, I think that considering that the how the first judgment by the GSTAT has been delivered, considering the earlier years, they have taken a bit liberal approach rather than going into reconciliation themselves. So I think in these kind of cases also, because we have multiple contradictory judgment, there are many judgments which have clearly said that if the department has uploaded any order or the communication on the portal, but the assessee has not responded to those notices even after reminders, the revenue should have adopted the other modes. So considering those judgments also, I think the relief should be given. However, the once these matter reach to tribunal, there are many cases. So once the tribunal decides on this, then we can better discuss on this aspect. But as of now, the law is unclear, especially given the fact that there are different judgments.
Hmm. Agreed. Agreed.
Yes, Mike. So one more judgment that we'll be discussing. This is regarding, again, this issue is also very open. There are various contradictory judgment on this regarding the bunching of show cause notice under Section 74, whether it is bunching of show cause notice for multiple tax period, whether it is permissible under GST law or not. So this is from the High Court of Bombay in the case of Speedway Logistics versus Union of India. So while there are different judgments starting from the Madras High Court in Titan case, and there are other judgments also, the Titan was favorable for the assessee. And subsequently, there have been favorable as well as negative judgments. And then the CBIC circular also, where they have discussed that there is no restriction. However, the circular not being a law, it is only being the interpretation by the board. The actual law is yet unclear. Different high courts have taken different approach. In this case, the Nagpur bench of Bombay High Court, they have specifically while there are different judgments, but they have considered that the judgment of High Court of Bombay will prevail in the case of Millrock Good Earth Developers and Right Water Solutions. The reasons that they have quoted, again, they have specifically said that the under GST law, annual returns are based for each financial year. So basically, returns are filed annually for the for a particular financial year. Although there are monthly return filings, but the liability is tied to the specific financial year, and the statute fixes a time limit from the date of annual return, from the due date of annual return. So they have said that the since the time limits are given for the financial years or the annual return for the financial year, so each show cause notice should be separate for the separate financial year. It should not be clubbed. And if the multiple periods SCN are covered in a single show cause notice, it would be like aggregating the different tax period with different due dates, and which is not permissible in the law. And because the from the department side, it was said that the matters are pending before the different high court, and the department is proposing to challenge the judgments in the before the honorable Supreme Court. So the high court has said that if the judgments if the cases are decided by the Supreme Court, then this will be settled. So as of now, the high court has given the judgment in favor of the assessee, disallowing the clubbing of the show cause notice for multiple financial years, especially under Section 74. Mohit, any comment on this?
So, in this particular case, would I tend to disagree with the Bombay High Court because again, this is one of those issues wherein we have multiple judgments of different contradicting judgments of various high courts. So, Delhi High Court has taken a view that bunching of show cause is allowed only in case where the offense is very severe, like these bogus billing, fake billing cases. So in these kinds of cases, bunching of different financial years for purpose of issuance of show cause notice is allowed. So some high courts have said that individual show cause notice can be issued. Some high courts have held that it can be bunched. Different show cause notices for different financial years can be bunched. In my view, the issuance of show cause notice is a procedure. So even if for different financial year, if a department is bunching the show cause notices, as long as it is not tampering with the timelines. So if let's say a show cause notice has been issued for the financial year the 21-22 till 23-24 under section 74. So and that has been so let's say 21-22 for 74 we have a timeline till December 22, December 27 is the timeline for adjudication of order. So let's say the department does not adjudicate that order by December 27. So the portion pertaining to 21-22 will get time barred. So in my view, even if the department is issued a consolidated show cause notice, as long as it has bifurcation for different financial years. So then they should not bar the department, or they should not entitle the assessee to say that the show cause notice itself is invalid. Because you can challenge a part of the show cause notice on the ground that this particular part is invalid or time barred because a particular timeline has crossed. But it should not give the right to an assessee to say that the complete order or complete show cause notice itself is time barred. And that has been a old practice. So it is not something new in GST. Even in service tax time, in excise regime, in customs regime, we have seen show cause notices wherein it has been issued for the 4 years, 5 years at a time. So this bunching of show cause notice is a very old practice. So this is not something new in GST. So I would tend to disagree with the judgment of Bombay High Court, but nevertheless, see, anything which is in favor of SSC, we can definitely take benefit in court of law. But my
So Mohit,
personal view is a bit
hmm,
different.
I have two particular points on this. One is the with respect to if we talk about the time limit under the 73 or 74, if we compare the wordings of 73, 74 vis-a-vis the GST audit, so in the case of GST audit under section 65, read with the rules, it says that when they talk about the period of audit, they say for a financial year or part or multiple thereof. Now, when they have specifically used the words like multiples thereof for the audit proceedings, they could have used it for the show cause notice related proceedings also. This is just a food for thought. And regarding the other point, in case of section 74, there is a circular by CBIC and the master circular on the adjudication, show cause notice and adjudication 1035, where they have said they have clarified that when for a particular aspect the department is already aware of a fact in a particular financial year and the extended period has been invoked, although they don't talk about the financial year, but they say कि अगर department को पहले से पता है, if department is already aware of a particular fact and they have alleged the extended period of limitation and all on that, on same set of facts subsequently they cannot invoke the extended period of limitation. Now if they bunch the 74 for multiple financial year, let's say same fact, the assessee is not paying tax on the secondment issue. Now if the department com- uh, consolidates the show cause notice under 74 for more than one financial year, now in the first, if they have issued separately, they could not have invoked 74 for the subsequent financial years, but this will give them liberty to merge 74 for both the years. So I think that may be one aspect that we can take if we if the department doesn't agree with the this judgment, or if there is something negative, we can take this ground also in further cases.
Hmm. Agreed. So,
Mohit, I think we can proceed with the updates.
yes, I think we can
Uh,
proceed.
would you discuss this? In there are two advisories. One is with respect to interest auto computation, and one is with respect to setting of the input tax credit for payment of IGST.
Okay, so I think let us first take the set of change in set of mechanism. So, friends, till now, what used to happen is if we talk about IGST liability. So, for the ITC set off against IGST liability, the order used to be first IGST credit has to be set off first. When that is a cardinal rule now that if you have any kind of credit uh, in IEC or S, first of all, IGST credit has to be exhausted. So that is one aspect. But now we're talking about IGST liability. So against IGST liability, first IGST credit has to be set off, then CGST credit has to be set off, and then only you can set off the SGST credit. So that used to, in a lot of situation, that used to create a abnormal situation wherein the balance of CGST and SGST used to be unequal because if someone has very high ITC or CGST and SGST and very high IGST liability, so that CDST credit used to get exhausted because first you have to use the complete CDST credit and SGST credit. So basically, CGST credit used to be very low and SGST credit used to be very high. So that led to a lot of problems. So in some cases, it used to happen is you are paying tax in CDST head and still you have balance in SGST. In refund computations also, sometimes that used to result in some abnormal situation. So that kind of problem was there. So now the government has come out with this circular advisory, basically not even circular, wherein they have said that GST portal will not now allow you to file basically set off CGST or SGST in any proportion against IGST liability. So, and that is a very welcome relief. But one problem which I would like to highlight is that if you see the provisions of CGST Act and CGST rules, those provisions also specify this restriction that for IGST liability, so CGST rules specify this restriction. So that for IGST liability, first you have to use CGST credit and then SGST credit. That rule has not yet been amended. So if this functionality is made available on portal wherein you can use CGST or SGST in any proportion against IGST liability, but the corresponding rule is not amended, then that is going to create a very big problem, because even if the portal is allowing you to do something, GST again is a self-assessment law. So you have to, by yourself, you have to follow all the provisions. So even if GST portal allows you to do something, but CGST rules or CGST Act does not allow you to do the same, then you have to follow CGST Act and rules. So even if portal does allow you to do something, you cannot do that unless and until the rules also allow you to do the same. So before the you changing your utilization pattern, before taking advantage of this particular advisory, make sure that the notification which amends this particular rule has come. Until and unless that notification comes amending the corresponding rule, please do not take advantage of this advisory. Otherwise, you are liable to get notice from the GST department.
So Mohit, if somebody is having, let's say, so if somebody is already having this problem that they have been setting off CGST against the IGST in toto, and CGST has to be utilized first for the payment. First, IGST has to be cleared. Now, for payment of CGST, they are using cash, but SGST amount is getting consolidated because of more of interstate supply. Now, this problem is there in case where outward interstate supply is there and inward this intrastate. Now, if somebody takes the possible stand that because it is advisory and they have done it in a bona fide belief, so although the proviso to 49.5 is not amended yet and it is not giving any relief to the assessee as of now, but because there are various situations where the portal is against the assessee, but in those cases, assessee is following the portal where the law is not prescribing any particular restriction. For example, this these RCM ledger or the ITC reclaim ledger, but the portal is restricting that. So when for the restrictions, assessee follows the portal and there's no other option but assessee has to follow. For the relief, can they take a stand that I have only followed the portal? I have been doing the when it is against me, then also I am following the portal. When it is in favor of me, then also I am following the portal.
So I think that is a very good observation, Gopal. So see, in my view, first of all, one assessee cannot take advantage of other assessee disadvantage. So if one assessee is following restrictions on GST portal, even though that restriction is not prescribed in GST portal, GST law. So in other instance, I cannot go and say that since that was done by some other person or even that was done by myself in that particular
Myself.
case. In this particular case, I will take advantage of relief. So GST portal is a servant of GST law. We have to understand that. The Parliament has passed CGST Act. Government has notified CGST rules under the power conferred under CGST Act. So those are the binding legal binding law which I have to follow. So in cases where the portal is GST portal is restricting you from something which law allows you to do, in that case we have an option to go to High Court. So we have lot many judgments like we have the judgment of Bharti Airtel for rectification of 3B. So even though portal does not have any feature of rectifying 3B. But High Court, considering the whole structure of GST, they allowed Bharti Airtel to rectify its GST at 3B. And even GSTR 1, I remember some High Court judgment came few months back wherein they
In
allowed to.
Tranvan cases also we have seen.
Tranman cases is a very good example. Lot many judgments came on Tranman also. So in those cases where GST portal is not allowing you to do something which is otherwise allowed in GST law, then you can always approach GST High Court or the Supreme Court for that. But that does not give you a right to do something which is not allowed in GST law merely because that is now being allowed by GST portal.
So ideally, one should, as of now, one should follow the proviso to 49.5 and pay CGST in cash and keep accumulating the SGST unless the law is amended.
Absolutely.
Perfect, perfect.
So I think next we can move to the interest circular.
So interest related advisory, again, this is favorable for the assessee. And as per Rule 88B, when the assessee has deposited the cash in the electronic cash ledger on or before the due date, so the law provides that interest on the interest on tax liability, that is delayed payment of tax, is to be computed on the net tax liability minus the balance in the electronic credit ledger on the due date. But the computation on the portal was not as of now it was not updated. So it was taking the net tax liability, but it was not considering the cash balance. However, with effect from the January 26 tax period, when let's say the January 26 GSTR 3B is filed on 25th of February, that is 5 days delayed filing. In that case, the interest will be auto computed in the month of February, because January's late return will the interest for January's late return will be computed in February's GSTR 3B. So in February, the interest for 5 days for January's return will be on the net tax liability minus the minimum cash balance in the electronic cash ledger from the due date of debit, and the interest will be computed accordingly. So this was with respect to the interest, and I think it is in line with the Rule 88B only as of now. But Mohit, would you like to add any specific input on this?
Yes. So, see, all this dispute started. So, again, first we have proviso to Section 50 that was inserted 4, 5, 6 years back. But last year, January, if I recall correctly, we had judgment of Eicher Motors by Madras High Court, wherein it was held that even if some amount is there in your cash ledger. So, let me explain this with help of an example. So let's say you have 100 rupees of GST liability, 80 rupees ITC and 20 rupees the assessee had to pay in through its electronic cash ledger. So let's say the assessee deposited that 20 rupees on 20th February. So let us take example of January 26 only. So let us say the assessee deposits that 20 rupees on 20th February 2026. But due to some reason, the assessee is not able to file the GSTR 3B. The GSTR 3B is filed on 25th February. So, as per the earlier provisions, the assessee had to pay interest on that 20th on 5 days from 20th to 25th, because GST law only considers payment when that payment entries are posted in GST liability ledger. And when does that happen? When you click on that button in GSTR 3B, which says that post to credit ledger oblique make payment. So when that button is pressed, only then the payment of tax is deemed to be completed. So as per the earlier provisions, assessee had to pay interest on these 5 days. Even though he deposited the amount in his e-cash ledger, he paid the challan. The amount is reflecting in his e-cash ledger on 20th of February itself. Still, the assessee had to pay interest on this 20 rupees. And that judgment we also had of Gujarat High Court in Mega Engineering, wherein Gujarat High Court also uh, clarified the stand in favor of the department that payment is only considered when the tax is actually paid by means of payment entries in electronic cash ledger and liability ledger. But then last year, Madras High Court, in case of Icon Motors, they held that if the cash has been deposited by the assessee, challan has been paid, cash has come in electronic cash ledger, then interest cannot be demanded from the assessee. So post that judgment, the government also amended the rules. So I think Rule 88B was amended, if I recall correctly, and that specific proviso was inserted in Rule 88B to provide that if any cash has been deposited before the due date, on or before the due date in the e-cash letter, then interest cannot be demanded on that particular amount. And now with this advisory, they have basically made that operational also, that the auto calculated amount will take into account this particular amendment as well, wherein and the minimum amount which is lying as on due date of the return. So any amount which is lying on 20th February 2026, that will also be excluded while calculating the interest on late deposit of tax. But one important aspect which I think that amendment also overlooked, and consequently this advisory is also overlooking. So in our case, 20 rupees was the net cash liability, which was supposed to be paid on 20th February along with 3B. Now let us take a case wherein out of this 20 rupees, 5 rupees was paid on 20th February itself, and balance 15 was paid on 22nd February. And GSTR 3B was filed and those payment entries was posted on 25th February. So in that case, that 15 rupees, which was paid by the assessee on 22nd February 2026, whether on those 15 rupees you have to pay interest for 2 days from 20 to 22, or for 5 days from 20 to 25. So that is a very big question, because if we see the judgment of Icah's Motors, that was a very simple judgment. कि whenever you have paid any amount in electronic cash ledger, interest has to be calculated till that date only. So 22 तारीख को आपने 15 रुपए जीएसटी कैश लेजर में डाले हैं, so only up to 22 interest can be charged. But if we see the Rule 88B proviso and this advisory, they both are referring to the cash deposited till the due date of GST return. So according to Rule 88B as well as this advisory, on the due date, that is 20th, 5 rupees is lying in my cash ledger. So only this 5 rupees will be reduced for calculating the interest liability, and balance 15 I have to pay interest from 20 to 25, complete 5 days. So I think somewhere there is a disconnect between that judgment and this rule and advisory. So if any of the assessee is falling in this particular case, so either first you should try to avoid these kind of case, whatever payment if you want to make, if for any reason your 3B is getting delayed, try to make the complete payment before 20th, before the due date only, so that interest calculation, automatic interest calculation is takes into account that payment. But if you're not able to do so, then if you're making these part payments, then GST portal is not going to consider that. So in that case, whether we have to go back to High Court again, because that is against the judgment which was given by Madras High Court. So whether we have to go to High Court again, that is one thing which we will have to examine.
So, Mohit, what I understand from this amendment and the advisory also, perhaps they have tried to resolve only that situation where the assessee deposited. So many times, what happens on the last date, we have deposit the amount got deducted from our bank or from the assessee's bank, but the challan is showing in progress, and the payment is not reflecting cash ledger. So in that case, or the GST return is not filed timely for the technical reason, but cash has been deposited. Assessee wants to file. So what appears, the intention that appears on this is not to consider the cash amount as a payment, but it is considered as an attempt that you have given your attempt to file. Now, if it is delayed due to technical reason, last moment you are not able to log in, but cash has been deposited, you are filing on 21st. So in that case this should be helpful. But even if we don't do part payment, let's say the entire payment, there was 10 lakhs of liability, everything is paid on 21st, so that will not be considered as a payment. If you have filed it return on 25th, that will not be considered as a payment, that will be considered as not paid only for the purpose of interest. So I think they are only resolving when you are not able to file but you have paid the taxes properly on 20th.
Correct, exactly.
So that's from the interest part. And more, there's one change with respect to the portal. Again, this is not provided in the procedure or the law as of now. But as per the provisions of section 39 and 44, when the any return GSTR 3B, GSTR 1 or GSTR 99C for a particular financial year or a tax period cannot be filed after 3 years. So the government has given an outer time limit of 3 years. This is not the due date. This is the time limit within which maximum you can file the return. So the due date is still the same. For GSTR 1, the 11th and the GSTR 3B 20th. Sorry. But the law is saying that after a particular period of 3 years from the due date, you will not be allowed to file. The portal will restrict you from filing. Even if you want to file, you cannot file. So, for example, for financial year 1920 or 2021, now I want to file any particular return. I am not allowed to file that. Now, for non-filing, let's say GST registration has been cancelled, that I have not filed for so long. As per the provision of 29, the department has suo motu cancelled my registration. I went for the revocation, whether revocation approved, subject to the condition that I file all the pending returns, or revocation rejected, but I went to High Court, and High Court said that no, considering the justice, he should be allowed to file the returns and the registration should be revoked. Now, the condition is that I have to file all the pending returns, but the GST portal does not allow me to file the returns for a period prior to 3 years. मैं पिछले 3 साल की फाइल कर सकता हूँ, उससे पुरानी I cannot file the GST returns. This similar case is there in the best judgment assessment cases also, where I have not filed the returns. The department is assessing my liability on the basis of best judgment. In that case also, if the best judgment assessment order has been passed, that order stands with that order is automatically withdrawn if I file the pending returns within 60 days, subject to the condonable period. But again, if the returns that I have not filed pertains to a period prior to 3 years, the portal does not allow me, even if I want to file. So I cannot take the benefit of that provision under provisions related to best judgment assessment or the revocation of cancellation. Now the GST portal has given a facility that when you log in, you get there's an option that you can uh, apply for unbarring the for filing returns. So the law does not allow you. The portal is currently restricting, but you can apply that the barring on the this filing of return is basically withdrawn in your case, or you should be allowed to file the returns pertaining to the periods older than 3 years. So once you do that, you can apply for the revocation or the your best judgment assessment cases as the case be. So this is provided in the provided on the GST portal. But as of now, if I am correct, the law has not been amended, and the law is clear that you are not allowed to file the returns for a period after 3 years.
Correct. So again, this is one of those cases where there is a conflict in GST portal and GST law. So, say in case I am allowed by High Court, that is a different case because High Court has allowed the assessee to file the return, and GST portal is allowing me to do the same. Then there should be no conflict. But in other cases where the law itself is contradicting, so section 62 for best judgment assessment, that notice has been issued and assessee wants to file a return corresponding to that notice. 3 years have passed. So one provision is saying that file the returns to get the best judgment assessment withdrawn. One provision is saying after 3 years you cannot file. And GST portal is allowing the assessor to do the same. So that is going to be litigative for sure, but I believe that as long as you have some supporting, some one provision is at least allowing the assessee to file the return. As long as you have some supporting, you can file the return after 3 years, but out of the blue. So let's say you do not have any case on anything, you just forgot to file the returns and you file that return. Now you applied for unbarring of return and you file that return on GST portal without any corresponding support. Then that return may be treated as invalid by the department because you do not have any basis to file that return after 3 years.
Right, Mohit. So basically, in case of cancellation of registration, litigation is anyway long drawn. So it might happen that I have not filed return for, let's say, last 1 year. Now the cancellation order is received or the cancellation notice is received. I have replied, considered, not considered, then order passed, then I went for revocation, and that too within the condonable period, which is again rejected. Then I went to high court. Then there is a long litigation process. In that case, I think this can happen that the returns are pending for more than 3 years. 1 year I have defaulted, and rest 2 years I could not file because registration was suspended and all, so or cancelled. So I think this should help in those cases, and perhaps the law should also be given some kind of proviso, or at least a clarification or something from the board should be expected to make this litigation free in future.
Agreed. Agreed.
Right. So I think we can now discuss queries, Mohit. The updates and case laws are done for now.
Okay, so I think we can take queries for the query. We have also received some queries on our Google form. But if any of the participants wants to ask their queries, we'll take those queries first, and then we can move to the queries which we have received on our Google form. So I think it's since it's already one, we'll try to wrap up the query session in next 10 to 15 minutes. So any of the participants, if they have their query, they can either raise their hand or they can just unmute themselves and ask the query. Any query related within indirect tax. So GST and customs, any query within indirect tax domain that we can take up.
Just to specifically clear, we can take the any query, not necessarily related to these updates or the case laws. Mohit, we can take up the Google form if nobody has query as from the participants.
I think GST law काफी simplify हो गया है if none of the
So,
participants have any queries.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, yes, I think Shubham Gupta ji was saying something.
Hello. Can I ask?
Yes, yes, please Shubham ji, go ahead. Shubham ji or Krupesh ji, who is asking the query?
Rohit Sharma.
अच्छा हाँ, yes, Rohit ji, go ahead.
I ask, can additional documents or evidence be submitted at the time of filing an appeal?
Yes, so I think that is a very, very good question because a lot of times what happens is at the time, because appeal filing is within that statutory time limit of 3 months plus 1 month condonation. So a lot of time what happens is at the time of filing of appeal, we might not have all the documents or we might not think of all the grounds. But when hearing comes, maybe after 6 months or 1 year, or in case of tribunal, it also happens that hearing comes after 2, 3 years. So we might have some additional documents, or we might have some additional grounds. Maybe some new judgments have, or some new judgments of high courts have come up, or some new grounds. Some other team member have worked on that appeal, or some new consultant have working on that appeal. So at that time, they think of some new grounds. So now at the time of hearing, whether those additional facts or additional grounds can be taken. So, see, in my view, additional grounds can be taken anytime. Till the time you're going for hearing, before hearing, additional ground you can take anytime. Additional fact before GST tribunal can be taken only if you have gotten permission, if you have gotten leave from the GST appellate tribunal. So that is up to the discretion of GST appellate tribunal. If they allow you to give additional facts, then those facts can be taken up. And basis our past experience from CSTAT, you should have a good reason why those facts were not included at the time of filing appeal, whether by assessee or by department. So that law is applied uniformly to assessee as well as department. So if any additional facts are being introduced, there better be a good reason, and then that is also up to the tribunal bench to decide whether they will admit those facts or not. But grounds you can take as long as those grounds are also not introducing a additional fact. So on existing facts, if you want to take a new ground, that can be taken up.
Right.
Similarly,
Mohit, But
Yes.
I would add one point. So this is specifically covered in the Rule 112 of the CGST rules. And in respect of the GST 80 rules, the GST 80 procedure rules, Rule 45 specifically covers this situation. As a principal rule, the additional evidence, whether documentary or oral, is not allowed. However, as Mohit rightly said, that with the special leave of the bench or with the special leave of the appellate authority, this can be this can be considered. However, when we say additional document or evidence at the time of filing an appeal, so there are two things. One is at the time of appeal, we replied with all the possible grounds. Now, with respect to those grounds, we are taking some other judgment, or we are quoting some other source. So ground was there, but it just we did not elaborate that much at the time of filing appeal. But at the time of hearing, we are given the additional documents with respect to the same. For example, at the time of filing appeal, I said that my supplier has paid the taxes and he has confirmed it to me. Now, subsequently, I submit the declaration or the certificate. Now, that is an additional document at the time of hearing, additional evidence. But the second case is I have not taken the ground at the first level itself. I said that there is no mismatch in GSTR 2A and 3B at the time of filing. I said because my understanding was wrong. Now, at the time of hearing, or let's say at the time of first appeal, I did not take this ground. At the time of filing the second appeal before tribunal, I am saying that mismatch in 2A and 3B is not a valid ground to deny the ITC for so and so reason. So that is a completely new ground I am taking. Same ground, additional document with the permission of the bench is very well possible. Even the new grounds, if I am taking, if I have a reasons, the benches and the appellate authority can consider. However, it should not be completely something new. Like for example, at the time of original order, I received four issues, four allegations were there. I filed an appeal replying on the three. The fourth one I did not accept, but I did not provide any ground on to that. Now, at the time of filing appeal before tribunal, I change my mind and I say that I want to challenge all the four grounds. So that is something which is different because when I'm filing the appeal before the tribunal, it is always against the order of the appellate authority. It is not against the order of the original authority. So we'll have to be very careful that whatever I have replied, whatever I have preferred before the appellate authority, I should not be completely uh, diverting from that grounds taken there because it's everything I have stated before the appellate authority are my grounds that I am taking further. I am not changing the grounds. That's something that we need to take care.
I think for this reason, what I always advise to clients that like we say, show cause notice is the foundation of a case for the department. That for department, whatever they want to say, they have to give in a show cause notice. Similarly, for SSC, reply to show cause notice should be that foundation. So a lot of time, clients and even professionals come up to me and say, we'll give a small reply to show cause notice and we'll see a detailed reply at the time of first appeal or at the time of tribunal appeal. But see, all these issues can come up if you want to give some additional grounds, additional facts, or anything at the time of tribunal appeal or even first appeal. These kind of issues can come up. So that is why, as a matter of practice, it is always better to give as many facts, relevant facts, not irrelevant facts, but as many relevant facts and as many grounds as possible at the time of reply to show cause notice itself, and then that can be carried forward to first appeal and second appeal if those grounds are not accepted. But those grounds should be there in your reply to show cause notice as well as first appeal, so that these kind of issues do not come up if some new ground or some new facts you want to get admitted. Getting those admitted at the time of tribunal can be problematic. That will depend on the discretion of the bench. So it is always better to include them in reply to show cause notice itself. Another problem which usually come up then is that a reply to show cause notice will, let's say, if it starts running into 30, 40, 50 pages, because you have tried to include each and every ground. So then what should we do? So see, practically what we do before the CSTAT is, whenever our appeal or our reply is very long, which it usually is, we create a small 2, 3 pages synopsis for us as well as the bench. So this practice we follow even for the commissioner appeal. For the first appeal also, whenever we go for any hearing, we prepare a small synopsis that so these are my grounds. Out of these two or three are the major grounds, because even if you have 5 or 10 different grounds, only two or three are going to be the main ground. And if the authority does not accept those grounds, then you can move to the secondary grounds. So we just prepare a 2-3 pages summary that so these are the major grounds, these are the relevant facts, and these are the name of the judgment, that the 2-3 landmark judgment, because on a particular case you might have 15 or 20 or 25 judgments, but you only need to give name of one or two judgments. You do not need to give name of 25 judgments. So those 2-3 pages summary should be enough to understand the case and understand the grounds of appeal. So that being there, then in detailed appeal you can have everything, so that you do not miss anything miss anything legally. So that is my practical recommendation to all the clients as well as the professionals who want to go for appeal, first appeal or tribunal appeal.
And also, Mohit, one thing at the time of hearing, it's suggested that, like you mentioned, synopsis and all, the written submission, because many times if we miss something, if we submit it, because many times the authorities themselves ask that they have gone through the appeal, they want something in writing, in written, in form of a written submission, and it's practiced especially before the state authorities, appellate authorities. So they just want to refer to 1 or 2 page written submission, so there we can, if we have any additional ground that we want to discuss, we can mention there.
Great. So everyone wants to save time. So if you
Right,
save time of the appellate authority or judges, they will always appreciate that.
right.
So I think we can move on to the next query. So next
Hi.
query. Uh,
Yeah. So
Hi.
I just have one question. I just wanted to understand, currently I'm making the payment as a form of advance for purchasing the metal scrap. So currently
Hmm.
from last year, like you must be aware that we have to file the GSTR 7 TDS returns. So just wanted to understand whether that TDS applicability will be there in this respect of transactions.
So for purchase of metal scrap,
I mean
TDS
the advance,
processing
because
table
Section
is
51
applicable.
talks about the TDS will be applicable at the time of making the payment. So that's I just want to know what should be thinking.
If TDS is triggered, because for TDS there is a condition that your supply contract value should, including the GST amount, should exceed 2.5 lakhs in a financial year. So if for that particular advance, the contract value is exceeding that 2.5 lakhs threshold, then TDS is applicable. And as soon as TDS becomes applicable, then TDS would be applicable at the time of payment also. So you will have to deduct TDS while making payment to your supplier. I hope I am clear, Krupesh ji.
Yes.
Mohit, we
So,
can discuss 1 or 2 query from Google form also.
yes. So, if any participants does not have any more query, we'll take up the queries from our Google form. So, Gopal, first query is regarding pre-deposit in case of penalty. So, if a order has been issued only for penalty amount, there is no tax or interest demand, or let's say even if interest demand is there, interest and penalty demand is there. So, whether any pre-deposit is required or not.
So Mohit, it is required in both first appeal as well as the appeal before the tribunal. The proviso to 107 subsection 6, it says in case of penalty, in case of order demanding only penalty, it is required. The appeal, this pre-deposit is required 10%, and even in the this case of tribunal, in addition to the what has been paid before the first appellate authority, it again 10% is required, provided the order is demanding only the penalty. There is no tax demand. So in that case, pre-deposit is required.
Okay. Thank you, Gopal. So, so moving on to next question. So next question is regarding which is more beneficial option among the rectification versus appeal. So if a order in original has been issued by the adjudication authority, so whether the assessee should go for rectification or appeal, or in what kind of cases rectification is better, in what kind of cases appeal is better.
Mohit, as per my understanding, the rectification is very specifically limited to the correction of errors apparent on the record. So, for example, the original authority passed an order demanding the tax of 100 rupees, and in calculation of interest is wrong there, or the penalty calculation is wrong, or let's say they considered 10 invoices, but in the computation they have not considered they have considered the only the while giving the benefit of ITC on invoices, they have considered 8 invoices, two they have missed by for whatever reason. So in those cases where there is purely clerical error or the error which is apparent from the record, in that case we can go for the rectification. But in rectification, we cannot take any ground as in why the demand should not be made. When demand is confirmed, we can only challenge it before the appellate authority and subsequently before the tribunal. So if it has to be contested on merits, it should go under the appeal. If we are agreeing with the merits that demand is maintainable. However, the calculation that the department has done is not correct, or they have not considered any specific ground that we have given, but that is considerable. I think there is some uh, instruction or the circular by the Delhi department where they have said that non-consideration of reply also falls under the case of this error apparent on record. So we can see where if it is falls under the error apparent on record, then we can go under rectification. Otherwise, for challenging the order, we have to go under the appeal.
So one more aspect which I would like to highlight here is, see, a lot of times when assessee wants to go for rectification for one simple reason, avoiding the pre-deposit. So that is a very practical reason for going for rectification rather than appeal. So a lot of time when assessee comes to us, they say that they want to go for rectification because they do not want to give pre-deposit of 10%. But in case rectification does not result in a favorable order, then they want to go for an appeal. And as Gopal mentioned, that if a rectification is rejected, then against that rectification order, you can only go in appeal on a limited aspect, that whether that rectification was rightly rejected or not. But you cannot go to discuss the merits of the case in that appeal against the rejection order. So in that case, the question which comes up is, let's say, because the time limit to file appeal and rectification is same for rectification as well as appeal, you have to file within 3 months from the date of communication of order. So let's say appeal was rectification application for rectification was filed within 3 months, but the order for rectification came after that 3 month period lapsed from the date of order. So order came after maybe 4 months or 5 months or 6 months. So in that case, now what should SSC do if they want to discuss the merits and rectification has been rejected? So what should they do? So in that case, there are some judgments of high courts wherein they have held that in those cases where the SSC went for rectification and they had an option of filing appeal at that time also, and the rectification order was ultimately rejected, then those 3 months you have to calculate from date of communication of order. So those 3 months have to be calculated by excluding the period from date of rectification application and date of rectification order. So I'll give an example to give some more clarity on this. So let's say you received an order on 31st December. So 3 months from 31st December is 31st March. You have to file an appeal or rectification application by 31st March. Let's say you filed your rectification application on 31st January, and the rectification order is rejecting the rectification application is issued by department on 31st August. So in simple terms, what those judgments said is the period from 31st January till 31st August, these 7 months, will be excluded from the period of when calculating those 3 months for filing an appeal. So in simple terms, what can I say is, when I filed that rectification application on 31st January, I had 2 months left. By 31st March, SSC had to file rectification appeal. So on 31st January, 2 months were remaining. So those 2 months SSA will get on the date of rectification order. So rectification order was issued on 31st August. So from 31st August, SSC still has 2 months time to file a appeal, because period between 31st January to 31st August will be excluded while calculating the 3 month period. But be very careful, because this judgment has been given by one or two high courts only. This is not yet given by the Supreme Court of India. So this is not law of the land. Uh, if you're in your jurisdiction, if this judgment has come by a jurisdictional high court, then you can very well take the support. But if you are in any other state, then this is going to be litigative, because department might not accept this ground, because the judgment is not of their jurisdictional high court. So be very, very careful if you are going for this particular route.
Also, Mohit, on this aspect, so the High Court's judgments, or there's some judgment I remember in the earlier laws also, when the assessor is filing the appeals before the different, or assessor is preferring appeal before a wrong forum. So rectification is one forum, appellate authority is one forum. If the assessor has a bona fide belief and he is genuinely preferring a rectification before before the authority for the rectification, so the as per the limitation aspect, the time limit should be excluded. However, there are cases where the department has taken the negative views, and it has been upheld also, because shopping is not permissible, because it will unnecessarily kill the litigation time. So that is to be considered, how the courts see, whether they see it as a forum shopping. For example, if somebody could not take a ground before the adjudicating authority, or did not file a proper reply, now subsequently he is aware of some high court judgment or something, or for whatever reason he came across something that is favorable him, so he cannot go and say that rectified basis this ground. Rectification should ideally be preferred based on the grounds that you have already submitted, if those have not been considered or wrongly considered.
Agreed. So, as far as possible, in conclusion, as far as possible, try to avoid going for rectification or appeal both. So, as far as possible, assessees should decide whether their case is good for rectification or good for appeal, and they should stick with one choice, because going with both the options may result in unfavorable situation in the future. So, try to avoid that as much as possible.
Right.
Oh, I think it's already 1:20 now. I think, I think we should close the session, even though we have one or two more queries. But considering the paucity of time, maybe we can take those queries in the next session, because this is going to be a weekly thing.
Or if they want to, if somebody has query, they can separately also reach out to us. So we'll see. But I think we should close it now. We'll take the remaining queries in the next session, and on the next Saturday we'll again meet.
Yes. So, thanks to all the participants for attending today's session. We will also create a WhatsApp group for all the participants, so queries can be posted in that group as well. And this weekly session, so link which you have, we'll try that the link which you have received for today's session, that link will remain same for every session, but you will receive the updated email. So that we will try, and we'll create a group for better communication, as well as connecting all the participants. So all the future participants as well as current participants, they will be in a single group only. And thanks to everyone for joining. Thanks to Gopal Bhai for coming. And
Thanks, Mohit. Thanks to all the participants.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Ria, you can end the session.